thanks very much for joining the Tech Central team. And we're very excited to have two of the top vendors in the world speaking with us today about the evolving e-commerce customer. James is the Tech Central moderator. So James, over to you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome those who have just joined. I see that the numbers are ticking up quite quickly, even while Michelle's talking. And I say that because before even introducing the topic and the speakers, I'd like to just illustrate that we have an eclectic mix of very, very interesting people who've joined and are still joining. I see the numbers ticking up again as we speak. Today's webinar. Just to mention a few of the names and the roles of which that have joined this call are of a very high caliber, a lot of C-levels, a lot of people are very, very interested in their brand and their market and their customer. And just to name a few, so welcome all of you from the likes of MTN and Discovery and Nedbank and Vodacom and Tiger Brands and ABSA, Data, Liquid Telecoms, Mr. Price, Coca-Cola. That's just name me a few. Welcome. Welcome everybody. And for those I have not mentioned on the call, we know you're there. And please feel free to engage, ask questions in the Q&A, and look forward to what our incredible guest speakers have to offer. Jumping into our guest speakers, I'm very excited, and thank you very much for joining us, both Hisham and Richard. Hisham's based in Paris, and Hisham is an associate director of Blue Wolf. It's an IBM company, and he is in charge of business growth and the development of their IBM portfolio. And very importantly, we got him on the line today to talk quite specifically the partnership between IBM and Salesforce. So thanks, Hisham.
Hello. Hello. Thank you, James.
And Richard, all the way from Dublin, still reeling in the joys of the rugby that happened on Saturday. Well done, Ireland. And well done, Richard. I'm sure you're supporting and have been supporting in true green style. Thank you very much for joining us the whole way from Salesforce. Richard is the regional director of B2C, and he looks after Middle East, Africa, Turkey, and the whole of the Mediterranean region. So thank you very much, Richard, for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's jump straight into the topic because there's a lot to be discussed and we've only got an hour to do it in. And I know that the people on this call all are intrigued to understand and really dive into how brands and businesses are adapting to the expectation of this new connected customer. The world has changed since we last spoke, and a lot has happened as a result of the likes of IBM and Salesforce. Hisham, could I start with you? Just ask a little bit more about the partnership and the reason for this being such a strong and fortuitous partnership between IBM and Salesforce.
Yeah, thank you, James, and hello, everyone. So as you said, that Salesforce is one of our key partners. The lovely story started, I think, in 2016, a long time ago, between our two CEOs from Salesforce and IBM. They have signed a strong partnership around artificial intelligence. And today, we can say that Salesforce is one of our key partners to leverage the support or digital transformation for our customer. Today, Salesforce, we can say that Salesforce is key for all of us in all countries. In all countries, we make a big focus on Salesforce today. This is very important for us. We are close to Salesforce. But we can say we have a big ambition at IBM Consulting around this partnership. The objective is to be the preferred partner in South Africa for Salesforce partnership. The second one is how we can leverage this partnership to deliver Salesforce at the scale of IBM. IBM is a large company available in many, many countries, and we have many capacity to deliver our promises. The third point is around what we are today. We are the fastest growing partner in the South Africa. And what we are doing with Salesforce, we are working in different industries. As you mentioned, Jeff, we have many companies, we have different industries, and we are working in different industries between IBM and Salesforce in retail, in telco, in financial services, in banking and insurance. And we develop a few key offerings around e-commerce, around contact center, around sales transformation, around MuleSoft, which is an API management system. And we are very focused on this partnership at every level, from C-level to operational level. This is what we can say today. This is very important partnership with us, Salesforce.
Thank you, Hisham. That's very interesting to see how you bring the valuable IP in the back end into the system. Richard, from a Salesforce perspective?
I think Hitcham touched on a lot of key points. I think IBM is a key partner for us, but when I think about partnership and what it really means, and it became very evident through the pandemic, right? Organizations really need to focus on what's important to them, whether you're a bank or you're a retailer, it's really your customer. So having good, solid partners is something that's really important. And we saw that at Salesforce, when our customers have come to us with challenges around cash flow, challenges around moving from physical to online completely, but also similarly for Salesforce. There's an area that we play in, and the reasons we partner with companies and organizations like IBM is because of that strong IP that they have, the industry knowledge that they have, the ability to support large transformations. So they're a key partner to us. But I think every organization, Salesforce, IBM, requires good partnership, right, to help them to remove burden from their businesses and really add value. So that's my perspective on partnership. I could speak all day about partnership, but it's a very important topic.
Thank you. Appreciate you illustrating that, because it's so often that we, the consumer or the customer, don't really understand the intricacies of that partnership in the back end and the support that you give us. So thank you. Jumping somewhat into the trends, and we could go back to talk about customer, but talk about the consumer quickly. What are some of the emerging trends that you've seen in the last while? And, let's compare to the last year. What's emerged as the trends that shoppers and the consumers are exhibiting in your world?
Maybe I can start, Richard, and I think you can complete.
Sure.
What we live, I think, in all countries, the two last year, we live a strong pandemic around COVID-19. And what we notice is that the behavior of the customer has really changed. And some of them will remain after the COVID. And what we learn from that is we see a change around our customer and a change around our client. The client need to change very fast. They have changed in the last 6 months more than they have changed in the last 6 years. In 6 months, they have to change it. What we notice is in every industry, but if we make a focus on the retail, but I think we have the same changes in all industries. But what we've seen is that the customer and the client have to innovate very, very fast. So we had some very huge demand from our client to support them in a fast acceleration of their transformation. We have some key trends. That one is online shopping around e-commerce. We can say it's not a new trend because e-commerce exists since a couple of years. But now what we see is that the e-commerce is a channel that is growing very, very faster. So people are still managing their purchase around online shopping, even if they can come into the store, but they start the experience online. So e-commerce is something very important in different areas, B2B, B2C, and all the brand, all the customers start to invest a lot on the e-commerce platform. And we've seen many, many projects that started 6 months last year with around e-commerce. It is very important for that. The second topic, I think, is around the omni-channel. When we have the lockdown, all the stores were closed. So now they need to touch the client around another channel. So they invest a lot. Many retailers started to provide omni-channel offering, like click and collect, and new services around this part. But because of many clients started from e-commerce, they can order around social media, around social network, around different channels. So this is very important. Another one is around hyper-personalization. The customer makes the difference around the brand. They expect from the brand to have the best knowledge of them. They need to know the customer. They want to be special for the brand. They want to be unique for the brand. And this is very important, how the data can be central for the company, how they can exploit the data, how they can personalize all services, offering, everything. Another one is around the direct to consumer. We have some clients, they wanted to avoid to have another wholesaler, to have an intermediate to sell their product or their service. So they changed their strategy. They have moved, they shift from a direct to consumer, a D2C. We are talking about B2B, B2C, but since 2 years, we heard a lot about D2C, direct to consumer. Another one is around sustainability, around e-commerce. We can call it e-commerce. We've seen that we have many brands, many clients that are starting to provide to their clients the ability to make e-commerce because they want to be very sustainable around circular, let's say circular economy. They want to change it. I think the customer have changed their mind, how they buy product, how they consume the product, how they consume the services, and the relation between consumer and the brand. It is very important for that. I think we can have many other trends, but the key trend is about commerce, is about omnichannel, is about the experience around the personalization that can brand provide to the client, around the sustainability. We need to understand where the product comes from, how around the blockchain of this product. And I think these trends have emerged during the COVID, but I think they will remain, because today we have many clients that request and they want to have more, they change their strategy. They have e-commerce strategy, they have marketing strategy, they have data strategy. And I think around the Salesforce from Richard, they can see it also in their discussion with their client.
Thanks, Hashim. On that note, Richard, do you want to speak to that somewhat? Because I think that the consumer's drive with the customer is, your customer, is actually delivering.
Yeah, I mean, at Salesforce, we've been speaking about, digital for a long time, right? It's not new. I think what kind of the COVID and the pandemic has done is removed social interaction from us and asked us to live our lives, right? And that has forced, not just emerging populations or emerging demographics or younger people or older people to engage with a new way of consuming content or purchasing online or doing their banking or whatever. It's forced them to really live a different life. And I think everybody on this webinar, this call, can relate to a lot of the things that they traditionally probably wouldn't have done, like maybe buy a pair of jeans online, right? If you've got a specific fit, or maybe even make bigger or larger purchases. I have a friend who's purchased a car online. Like Mercedes are going down the path of trying to get to over 32% of their sales will be online in the next number of years, right? This is unusual in the mainstream, but that's where we're going, right? And if you think about, I'm sure everybody can relate to this, regardless of where you are globally, there are things that you will exit and really enjoy doing, like, the reality is we're in the midst of a pandemic and every organization has to be conscious around health and safety, right? It's hugely important. Another emerging trend, which we're seeing more and more come out, is sustainability, right? And the discussion around that. But even just little things like there are more and more people shopping on emerging channels and it's demographic agnostic, right? That's not the younger demographics like millennials or Gen Z coming in. Everybody's doing this. So the trends that are emerging are here to stay. And what I think is really interesting is when we look at things like retail and the association of that consumers for any industry have is with the brand, right? 8 in 10 are looking to a brand to really align themselves not only to the product and service that they provide, but the values also that they have as an organization, right? And if brands are not making that connection with the consumer, after 1, 2, or 3 poor experiences, consumers are free to go and consume a product or a service elsewhere, right? Because they've now been trained that they have the ability to go online. We're seeing social interactions going up. We're seeing the availability of content online to consume is becoming more and more available. And also the physical locations, which we still love and adore, whether that's in retail or in banking, are having to change, but not only change things like health and safety, but also provide a different way for the end consumer to interact. Whether you walk into a bank and you need to go through the mortgage process, there's a different way of doing that now. And similarly with stores, in retail stores, there's no longer the availability of inventory. We've seen supply chains being completely, decimated. So the availability of stock in a store is one thing, but also on the other side, is there a requirement for that? Is that actually what the customer wants, right? And in most cases, it's an experience, it's a community and so on. So there's lots of emerging trends. I think many of them are here to stay. And unfortunately or fortunately for the consumer, it'll be really their choice to decide which ones we keep, and many of them will stay.
Richard, it's interesting how you talk about the consumer and you immediately jump to their affinity to a brand, but also their loyalty to the brand that evolves. And I think we've all had our experiences where we go to our trusted, our known pair of shoes, or you use an example of a pair of trousers or jeans. How is it that the consumer is now looking at the packaging and the communication and the sort of end-to-end omni-channel engagement that's perhaps almost more important than the loyalty that they used to have to the material of that brand?
It's an interesting question, and there's a few layers to that, right? But I think if you take a very simple perspective of it, what do we have today, right? We have access to information that is stimulating, right? And, we're naturally drawn to experiences that make us feel good, right? And if we're going through a process of experiencing good experiences, we want to continue that as consumers. So having the ability to deliver that across every single channel, whether that's physical, online, in a store, or even perhaps where you're not necessarily directly connected to the end consumer per se as they go through their journey, but that you're influencing them by content or advertising or whatever that may be. The experience that you deliver to an end consumer really needs to appeal to them. And it's not just around the actual product. There's a number of things. And the reality is every shopper wants to be known by the brand. And in order to do that, you need to make sure that every moment matters across all of these channels, which there are a myriad of emerging, collecting that data and then providing real personalized experiences to each individual, not necessarily a segment, but to an individual. Whether you're in an airline or you walk into a bank or you walk into a particular high-end luxury or lower end, you got to be providing a personalized experience to every individual. And that requires collecting and segmenting and making a sense of quite a lot of data.
And I personally think that it's a big aspect of what you're talking about is convenience. You look at grocery shopping. It's that convenience of knowing that it could be in your fridge within 60 minutes of placing that order. Hisham, how does IBM fit into that need for the convenience factor?
So to match with this convenient factor, James, is about the experience. All is about the experience that the brand provides to the client, because today the competition is very hard. We can say the difference is not about the product or about the service that you provide to your client. It's about the experience that you will be able to provide. And in every touch point that the client will have during this experience between the client and the brand, they need to provide a very personalized services, very personalized product. We are talking about in the retail, we are talking about smart retailing. Smart retailing is about how we can provide the right product or the right service at the right price, at the right moment. This is very important for that. And today we can see for different brands that we have in our portfolio with some customer. One is about TAG Heuer. TAG Heuer is I think everyone knows TAG Heuer is a Swiss luxury watchmaker in Switzerland since 1860. So what is difficult, the challenge for the brand is not to be the leader, is how we stay in the position of the leader. So this is very interesting discussion that we had with TAG Heuer. They started a new digital transformation around how do they interact with their customer. Because the client of TAG Heuer, they are not only clients, they are people who are very passionate with watches or something. So they can pay a huge amount for only one watch. So they wanted to change the relation they have in every touch point. So when the client will buy the product, when the client will call the service center because of he had an issue with the watch or something else, he needs to be a unique client. He needs to be known by the brand. If he comes to the store or he purchases online or he has a trouble with the service center, they want to make something very unique for the client. And the point that we had when we discussed with their digital and consumer vice president at TAG Heuer, the main point is how to stay as a leader in this market, because we have a huge competition. And this is what we did with this client, we started the implementation around the experience. We didn't start to implement a solution because the solution that we have with Salesforce can provide every feature that the client needs. But we wanted to create a solution based on the usage of the client, based on the experience that the client will have, the experience that will have the agent from the contact center, the experience that we'll have with the marketing campaign managers. Everything has been created around the experience that we had with the client. So we started to design a long customer journey, and then we started the implementation. And at the end, we have the result and the vision set by TAG Heuer. And we have many examples like this, but this is, I think, one of the key examples is really to promote the different touch points that the brand address with the client.
That's really interesting. And that's a high-end consumer good that typically, I would like to kick its tires before I put it on my own wrist. I'd like to have a good look at it. So what's your view on the actual shopping experiences in terms of the physical locations, the store, in relation to the advice you might be giving your customers?
For me, we can take all the trends that everybody can read online and talk about them all day. I think where I see organizations get this really wrong, And when I talk about organizations, is companies who are really trying to connect with that end consumer. And it's not just about connecting with the end consumer, right? It's about changing your organization to really have a loyal customer, right? Is they forget that the shopper or the customer of a bank, they don't really care about your departments, right? That's the first thing. What I mean by that is, so many organizations forget to use the customer, the shopper, or the consumer as the referee, right? They should be the referee in every decision that's being made around, are our investments the right ones that we're making, or are they not? And where I see this falling down is when we start to introduce various departments, whether that's a service department, not to pick on the marketing department or the service department, the loyalty department. When your consumer is engaging with your brand, they don't see that, right? They don't see omni-channel. They probably don't even know what omni-channel means. But the reality is you're tasked based on a shopper or a consumer's behavior with providing a seamless omni-channel experience. And that is hugely challenging. And it's more and more challenging the larger your organization becomes, right? Because you don't need to explain to people on the call, but I'm sure they are familiar with that, right? But the reality is you need to be really customer focused, and every decision needs the customer right in the middle, asking the question and being the referee. Is this important? Is this going to drive an amazing experience for me today? But more importantly, where is that shopper or that consumer going to be in the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years? And I think sometimes we also have to realize that what we have in our hands, or what we have in our hands as consumers, is often more advanced technical capability is moving far faster than our organizations can keep up with. So building that agility into your business is just as important as acquiring and buying technology, right? And what I mean by that is technology is a really important part of that. But if your culture within your organization is around the customer, if you're fully focused and you're asking yourself those questions around the customer all the time, then it really helps to guide that decision-making process. And I think Tag Heuer is a really, really great example. Well, they have, a franchisee style model. They've taken it into their hands because they've used the customer as their referee. Like Tag Heuer is a prestigious brand, but the reality is, having gone down maybe that path direct to consumer, they've realized that they really now own that end-to-end experience. And it's, as a Tag Heuer customer, I see huge differences in their approach. And you can see that, and it's not just from a technology point of view, they've really introduced other things that are really customer centric. So I know I've gone on a ramble there, but it's something that I'm very passionate about.
No, spot on. Thank you, Richard. It's good insights. And both of you are sharing such valuable insights from the same side of the coin, but offering very different elements to that solution. And thank you, very much appreciated. Before we jump into this sort of holiday period and anticipated expectation of holidays, making sure that the best gift is the gift that arrives on time, what are some of the immediate challenges you think that our market here in South Africa should be addressing in order to be as prepared as possible, and granted it might be a bit too late, for Black Friday, which arguably is complete chaos in your systems, and I'd love to hear what it really looks like on the back end. But then also very quickly follow thereafter this holiday period. And we don't have necessarily the same infrastructures and postal systems as Europe and other parts of the world benefit from. But we definitely have a fast growing distribution network, and something that we actually should be very proud of in the way in which it's improved in the last while. But what is your view right now of how your customers here in South Africa should be recognizing the pitfalls and opportunities that Black Friday, as a first example, might bring?
A very good question, because we definitely address this type of question with many of customers. Depending on the industry, we can have the same question for retail, for telco, for any customers that are selling services. What we can see is how do they prepare. I can tell you around one brand that we have, like Kering Group. Kering Group is a big retail in the luxury, like Gucci or Puma and many other brands. What they do, they have a global marketing department, which is very huge because they have many brands, and the customer can buy in different brands. But it has to be very important to have the same experience in different brands. It is very important for Gucci and Kering Group to provide the same experience. And what is important for them is they prepare in advance the knowledge of the customer. They have in different touch points, in different brands, they catch the data in a central database where they can have the best knowledge of the customer, so they can push some specific communication in different channels, SMS, marketing, email, and something like this. So they can attract the client before the event, if it's a Black Friday or Christmas or the father or mother day. So every journey all over the year, on all over the customer life, they can push different communication, different offer, different services, the combination of services. So this is very important for the brand to be able to address personalized communication, personalized offer, personalized services, combined with a loyalty program, because they want to attract their favorite client to consume, to buy, and to increase their revenue. But this is very important for them, is how they have the best knowledge of the customer.
Who provides that platform, the platform that does the communication and the continuity to that customer?
This platform, what we see that our client is a global engagement platform around Salesforce with Marketing Cloud. So we can engage, we can capture all the data within the platform. We can send different communication with using Marketing Cloud, and with our expertise on marketing, we are supporting marketing department on how they build marketing journey, how they build a specific communication to the client. And we are using Marketing Cloud or Pardot, which is a B2B and a B2C communication platform.
So I own a business and I need to distribute a number of different products, different brands, different audiences in a different way, but consistency in communication. Who do I speak to?
I think you can speak to IBM, and for that we have a big practice around the marketing, where we have people are focusing and they have knowledge on different industry in how to manage their campaign, how to manage the type of communication. And most of the time we have many clients, they have a specific agency. So we work with their agency, and we have at IBM, we have a consulting competencies that can manage a relationship between the client agency and ourselves. And of course, we have different configuration, but most of the time we have also people from Salesforce involved in this long journey with the client.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. That really helps to understand the communication side of it. And distribution, where do we stand with distribution in this conversation?
You order a product or you sell a product, you buy a product. What is very important is that based on the global digital platform, what is very important is how to deliver and how to ship the product to the right place of the customer. So we have the knowledge of the customer, we have the supply chain also combined with integration to the Salesforce platform. So we are able to define when the product can be sent, and we can trace and follow the product until the delivery shipping, the delivery address to the client. We can have a new touch point, could be a click and collect that we can have with, you can order a product, deliver it in a store, because you have a view on the stock where the product is available in which store, so you can manage it, or you can deliver on your different location. We have it in e-commerce with specific shipping address or drive, depending on the industry, but we have many things that we can do in e-commerce and combined with the supply chain features.
That's really interesting to understand, especially the fact that there's possibly a lack of product sitting on the shelves and ready to be distributed. It's important to be able to communicate with the customer. Richard, what's Salesforce's role in that?
It depends really where you are in your journey as a retailer or as an organization, right? But fundamentally, what is it that we provide? So we provide the foundations for you to be able to move in any direction that your shopper or your employee wants to move in. And what do we mean by that? So if we take in the context of retail, we connect up the contact center with marketing, with commerce, with the store, and we take all of that data that you have within your organization, unlock it, and enrich that entire journey, right? So you asked the question around, where should we be ready? What the question on distribution, and there's a few layers to that, right? Depends how capable are you. Do you have only one channel today? Do you have multiple channels? What I'm seeing coming from retailers in particular, because I spend a lot of time with retailers, is the holiday period is different this year, probably more different than it's ever been. It's going to be more elongated. Shoppers are going to come in on different channels, but they're still going to provide a tremendous amount of information and data. So some of the things that we can help to do is, how do you create, specific segments? For example, we're working, I know there's grocery retailers on this call. We're working with a retailer and you mentioned stock, right? We're working with a retailer in Europe. specifically around creating segments within a geographic location to the particular store associated with stock and with demographics, right? And a bunch of other attributes as well. But what that's allowing them to do is, when we hear all those things about, particularly in Ireland where I live, I can even already see the freshness of the stock is not as good as it used to be because of Brexit and a bunch of other things, right? But what they're doing is they're advertising and pushing this particular retailer proximity-based content to me that is specifically associated with product that, one, that I like, but two, that they know is in that store, right? Using Salesforce as an example. Other things are less, we'll say, technical heavy, but I think it's important as well to give maybe a slightly unbiased view, and I always talk about Salesforce, but is how do you repurpose your staff, right? Like if the traditional staff are in your store and their job is the store associate, well, can they facilitate curbside pickup, right? Can they move stock from one location to another? The reality here is being agile. So there's the technology element, and then using that technology to understand what your customers want, and then empowering the people, the stores, and your entire network to really give that customer experience, because it goes back to the customer being the referee. That's what's important.
Richard, thanks. The knowledge of your customer is something you've mentioned quite a few times, and in building the brand loyalty, the usability of the platforms, etc. How can we look at the customer and knowing the customer across different industries? So your example there was groceries and curbside pickup. What about other industries, banking, telco, for instance?
I was speaking to a telco just recently, and something very simple that they want to achieve is, how do you recognize a customer that walks into a store, goes online, but present product to them that is driven by their behaviors online? So for example, if Hitchem goes online, looks at a blue iPhone, how do we make sure that we're communicating in real time that preference, but also as his preferences change and he's interacting with various content, whether it's in a physical store or online, how do we make sure that we influence that content, change that content again, and push it to the end customer? I think another thing, and this is, I guess, industry agnostic, is commerce is, for me, is no longer really centralized, right? It's very much distributed. So giving consumers, regardless of the industry, the ability to connect with your product or service and transact across a myriad of locations, whether that's social, whether it's on video to a certain extent, right, where we're seeing what Netflix are doing, what Google are doing now with some of the offerings that they have around week-long content on YouTube that you can engage on and purchase and shop on, whether that's your iPhones or your iPads or particular services and so on. So I'm seeing that across industry. Another thing that I'm seeing as well, again, beyond just the retail segment, is, how do you make sure that when a consumer goes online, particularly with, say, in banking, for example, that's looking to buy a mortgage, how do you make sure that when they go online and they apply for a mortgage or an investment style product, that perhaps when they walk into a branch or come back again, that those systems are really connected up, right? And that when they're connected up, that the people that they interact with, whether that's online or a contact center or whether they walk into a bank, that all of those individuals, employees, are, one, able to effectively understand who I am as a consumer, what is it that I'm interested in, and not have to spend 1, 2, 3 hours potentially pulling all that information together to provide a mortgage application. You want to move these things along quickly. So there's a few layers, a few things.
And I think the advice that you're giving is going to be invaluable, because I, as a consumer, expect to be known. I've given so much of my data to you. You've been featured and rekid, and you have every other ounce of information out of me possible in order just to acquire that service or product. Now that you know that much about me, give me what I need, because you know what I need. Is that right?
Exactly. And customers are demanding. We know that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And talk about the customer. What are the customers doing, and what do we need to prepare for this crazy festive season that's ahead of us?
I think we touched on a lot of it, right? But the simple one, right, is online, right? If you're getting ready for that now, you probably want to be accelerating that preparation. But I think the obvious one is we need to prepare for online traffic, right? There's going to be a surge in online traffic. And a lot of customers who work with Salesforce, thankfully, is not something that they necessarily need to worry about, right? We've seen us deal with those peaks in traffic for many years. I think make sure that you're giving that personal experience, and recognize with a surge in traffic, whether that's online or in a retail outlet, there's opportunities here to acquire information from customers, whether that's data that they're willing to exchange, and just be aware of that and make sure that we're making sense of that. I think optimizing the performance of digital channels is hugely important as well. And loyalty. We talked at the very beginning around loyalty and the connection of brands. The reality is consumers and shoppers are looking to shop with a brand that really connects with them, right? Not only offers the good product and service, but is aligned to their values and sustainability and so on. So using that as an opportunity to deliver that great experience, but also recognizing that, that's not just from a technology point of view. It needs to be also through to the physical interaction. And what we see in retail as an example is if you're not providing that, you're not preparing for that, 86 or 87% of shoppers will shop with a brand in mind. But what we're seeing is more emerging channels or things like marketplaces. And the reality is that they're not getting that experience and that personal touch. They'll absolutely leave the brand and replenish online, right, from a myriad of products and services and so on. I think a few other practical examples is have choice, right? I think we're all feeling this globally. It's not just a South Africa or an Ireland or a China thing. Product availability is a challenge. So having choice available, particularly in retail, is hugely important, and making sure that we make that connection between perhaps one offering that we don't have and another offering that may be a substitute for it. I'm seeing that quite a lot. And the holiday season and purchasing behavior is going to be elongated. It's going to be longer than it normally would be. So I think, knowing those things, you can prepare pretty well for that. And when I say longer, it's really going to extend beyond, it started earlier and it's going to finish much, much longer after. So tailoring your messaging to make sure that you're still connected with that shopper or that demand as the holiday period starts and it continues on for a longer period of time. So just a few examples. I have a playbook, James. There's a couple of little assets that we can share with people that they can consume, because there's a lot of content in there, and trying to understand what's relevant for everybody is challenging at times, but I'll share it and people can consume it at their leisure.
That'd be amazing. Thank you. And then we'll distribute it to everybody on this call and those that registered and weren't able to make it. Thank you for that offer. Hisham, I'm just sitting here thinking, if I was the CEO, what questions should I be asking my CTO, my CIO, what are the typical questions I should be making sure that have been covered so I can sleep better at night?
Yeah, in the discussion that we have with the different CEOs, the CEO is much more focused on how we can make more revenue. I think it's all about the revenue, how we can retain his customer. The first one is, do we have an omni-channel strategy? Do we have a digital strategy? So a couple of years ago, we didn't discuss with chief marketing officer, chief digital officer. This is a new jobs in different companies. And most of the time, this profile or this role are young people. So what we discover is we are discussing with people around 30 years old, less than 40 years old, very young people around the digital. I think is all about how we can provide more services, more product for our client. Because today, the CEO are very, very focused on the digital. Before, we are focusing most of the time around information system, or my computer are working, or my server are working. But today, the information system is just the technology that will serve the digital transformation. And most of the brand or the organization are focusing on how we can manage the digital transformation, how we can manage different services for our client, how we can innovate around the services, around offering. Just to tell you, we have another client which is not in the retail industry, it is a pharmaceutical industry. They are selling some injectors for when you make a scanner in the hospital, and their clients, they are hospital. And now they are moving from product to service transformation. They are not selling only products, they are selling also services. And we have a strong partnership with this client around the IBM Watson in how to help their client to make a better diagnostic around the cancer of the foie, cancer du foie, I don't know in English, but we are seeing that people are moving from product to service. And this is something that's very interesting because the approach is completely different. So to sell product is not the same thing that you will sell as a service. So it is something that we can see. So if we retain one question, I think is how we can manage digital transformation for our client and to be more innovative.
Interestingly, you've actually just answered a lot of a question that I've just been posed. Warren Porteous is asking, and his question is, you've mentioned the need for flexible, responsive operations. What principles do you build into the operating model to facilitate this? And that's an excellent question, but I think you've answered quite a lot of that. But is there something else you perhaps want to say, Richard or Hashim?
It's a very broad question, right? I don't think it's something that we could probably answer in 10 minutes.
I think you've touched on them by talking about omni-channel, brand expectation, the ability to be direct to consumer, sustainability.
Yeah, I think maybe I'll take a different slant on that, right? The questions I'd be asking are, do we have the partners that will help us to accelerate and move quickly to the destination that we need to be in, whether that's in operations or omni-channel or whatever? Are we easy to do business with? Are we easy to purchase from, right? Are we an easy organization to buy from? And if you are, great. But if you are not, the questions need to be asked as to why not, right? What is it that's within our operations that is slowing us down? Are we too complicated? Do we need to remove complexity? I think there's probably another session that we could probably do on that topic.
That's a good topic. It also speaks to the fact that we are becoming more prevalent to digital. It is arguably more cost effective, but there's still very much a need for people to have the store that we talked about earlier, the normal customer experience. And that's also been coming through in some of the chat on the side here. And I think what we're also realizing is the need to anticipate the customer post-pandemic, what that looks like, what the consumers are going to expect when things, let's say things go back to some sort of normal, which I don't think there is an old normal. What are those post-pandemic expectations?
Yeah, maybe I can take it, James, with the transition to the last question around the physical store, if they disappear or not. We have the same question from different clients, but always the same question. But what we can see on the pandemic allows some clients to discover their weaknesses. And I think what we see is definitely the e-commerce is a key trend, and it will remain a key trend. And the growth around the e-commerce, that the online store will still increase in the next coming years. So what we see is different research around specific research around the e-commerce. The e-commerce revenue around the e-commerce will still climb around more than 21% in 2024. And today the revenue that...
Sorry, repeat that please, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, just the based on the Shopify. Shopify is a global company that's doing some
I think we've lost you.
report and trends analysis. Is today we increase the online shopping from in 2019 around 30%, and in 2020 it has increased by 18%, and in 2024 it will increase by more than 21%. So definitely the e-commerce is a key trend, and the company have to invest in. And what we can see today, I will not say all our projects, but most of the projects that we have is around e-commerce. It's very important topic.
Okay.
And I think one is around the sustainability. Sustainability is very important for the consumer. They need to understand where does the product come from, how the company is sustainable around the environment. I think this topic is very important, and we can see at IBM, I'm at IBM since 4 years. And last year we had a specific training around a new offering about IBM sustainability. And this is very important thing, I think.
I've got a lovely story, and that's one of my favorite brands. I won't give it away on this line, but they collect my empty box and the polystyrene that their product comes in every week. And I love that, because the last thing I want is to be creating more waste. And that element of sustainability is what I see. It's what we don't know that happens in the background that is also so important to creating that loyalty and brand affinity. Thank you. Somewhat aware of time, because we've only have 6 more minutes, and there are a few questions coming in on the side, and please keep them coming, those that are on the call. But just quickly to the speakers, is there anything we haven't said that we're prepared to say or would ruminate it around before this call? Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Somebody's asked a question there around, do I see physical stores disappearing in the future or becoming too expensive for the normal consumer, considering digital is a lot more accessible and more cost effective?
And just to add to that, there was another question talking about, would the retail store become more of an experience store?
Yeah, for sure. Like the store is certainly not going away, but it's definitely being reimagined. What we've seen is an acceleration, obviously, in e-commerce, but at the same time, while e-commerce is staying steady in terms of the growth and how it's really accelerated beyond where we thought it would be for obvious reasons, the store is still remaining a really, really important part. However, the store is going to change, and we've already seen the changes that are coming with that, right? They're becoming dark fulfillment centers. And we've seen the impact that it's had in certain locations as well, but they do need to change. They are changing, but they will remain a really, really important part in terms of, discovery, going in and touching and feeling fabrics for clothing, or experiencing, you see the likes of Google and Facebook and so on are moving into that area to drive more experiences. So they will remain. But what the data is telling us is that they're going to be very, very different. And for me, I think it's quite exciting in lots of ways, right? It will require a lot of change, but it's exciting in the sense that those static old stores that we would see have potential now to really attract and become destinations for experience. I see what Lego are doing around, which is pretty exciting for me with 2 young kids, is, they're really providing an experience in the store. So it's not only, bringing them in to build blocks and, to look at the ability to potentially, if you buy, get the blocks, but actually really engage with the product and so on. So I think that's very, very exciting. But the challenges that come along with that are, how do you reimagine then what the person or the people, the staff within the store will actually be doing? So they're going to have to become, again, I think, multi-skilled, right? So they're going to be knowledgeable around the product. They're going to have to be able to manage fulfillment and bookings, probably customer service. They're going to have to be a real rock star, if you like, in the store. Their roles are going to change, which again adds even, I guess, a layer of excitement as well to potentially being one of those employees in the store. So definitely not going away. And we've seen, I think it was around a 27% drop off in footfall in stores, but it's starting to recover now again. Will it come back to where it was? I'm not sure it will, but if we can repurpose them in other ways, I think it definitely has a very, very exciting future for the store.
Thank you, Richard. And I think that's a nice way to put a bit of a ribbon around that conversation, because as you alluded to earlier, there's a lot more we could talk about here. There's so much more depth that we could try and unpack. And one of the things we really try at Tech Central to do is to engage the listeners and the speakers at, post webinar on topics that are relevant and things that you still want to unpack further. And Richard and Hisham both offered for their contact details to be shared and for us to elaborate further on specifics after this webinar. And Richard kindly also offered to share that playbook. So thank you. And that we'll absolutely do that as Tech Central. I think some of the takeaways that I've definitely had from this call is the importance of customer centricity. Business agility talks about the customer being absolutely the center of everything you do. And I think the customers actually redefined their own retail experience. They've dictated what their expectations are. And yes, the mall, the shop, the store still exists and it absolutely serves a purpose. But the back end that gets the product into the consumer's hand, or even into, in my case, the fridge, is incredibly important. And we value the support that both IBM and Salesforce bring to that process. Thank you very much for a very, very insightful opportunity to talk to both of you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your preparation. And thank you, IBM and Salesforce, for everything you've done to make this event what it has been. And before any closing words from either Richard or Hisham, and a special thanks very much to the team on the back end from Tech Central for all the facilitation and ability to deliver such a wonderful conversation and a rich engagement. Thank you very much. Anything else from Richard or Hisham?
Maybe just thank you, James, and thank you for all the attendees for participating to this event. 1 hour is very fast and we have many things to say. Just for my last word is every client is unique. Every transformation is different from the other client. But what we can say is, as a global company, we have a global competency that we can support our clients in their different journey transformation, which is very amazing. And what we love in our job is when we support our client to reach their target in their transformation. And we have a strong relationship before the project, during the project, and after the project, because the project is not the end of the life. It's just the beginning that we will have with them. And based on all the different teams that we have around talent and engagement, about consulting, about technology services and design experience, people that can bring expertise and consulting to the client. So this is what we love and we can do with all of our clients, and especially using this strong platform with our partner, which is Salesforce. So thank you, James.
Thank you, Hisham. That was excellent. That's exactly how I like to feel loved. Thanks so much. And on that note, during the course of the early part of next year, we'll be hosting some physical roundtables to further engage on these topics. And we hope to see as many of you there as possible, and watch the space. So thank you, Richard. Thank you, Hisham. From me,
pleasure.
James
Have a great holiday.
Yeah. Wonderful festive season, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All the best.